Okay, so we are heading into our panel discussion, but before doing that, I want to invite our special guest to the stage, Council President Blaine Griffin. Thank you, sir, I just want to say a word of thanks to you for the leadership that you provide in our community. I'll have something for you before we part today, but thank you for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you.
All righty. So with that, I am excited to welcome our young people who have questions for our panel members that they've prepared with assistance. And they'll be joining us at the microphone with their questions. All righty. So I want to welcome you, Jermaine. I know you have a question for the Council President, Council President Griffin.
I'm a student at PEP Chestnut. I have lost people I cared about to gun violence. I have had access to guns since I was 9. I feel the pull to the streets is strong because people want to belong to something. How do we help people feel safe when they are facing all of those challenges? How do we create an even stronger pull to kinds of communities that help kids like me get on a positive path?
All right. Well, first of all, Jeremy, thank you so much for your courage for coming up here and doing this, and thank you to Positive Education Program for allowing me to be here today. Before I go any further, I always have to acknowledge my good friend and colleague, Stephanie House, that's here today. We, as Cleveland City Council and as many public servants, really care about young people because of our own life experiences. You see me here today in a suit and tie, and you see me here today as an elected official, but I can tell you that I went through some of the same challenges that you went through. I had access to a lot of bad things when I was a young person. And unfortunately, like many young people raised in a single parent household, even though I had a very supportive father, I had a lot of family members that were involved in some of the wrong things. So I was exposed to a lot of different things at a young age. The statute of limitations may still be in effect, so I can't tell you all of those things. But I will tell you that I was kind of rough around the edges until I got to be about 16 years old. And something happened that was very important, which is why some of the mentors and some of the people that you're dealing with PEP is so important. The boys in the hood got a hold of me, and I was pretty decent, halfway decent at basketball. And I just found something that my mother gave me yesterday, that when I was 16, I made a decision, or the boys in the hood made a decision for me, that they didn't want me in a certain lifestyle, that they had better ideas for me. And I turned my life around, and at 16 years old, I started making the honor roll. I started making a transition, which is why I do the job that I do today, because I feel like I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to society, because it didn't have to go this way. So what I would tell you, what we have to do is surround you by these positive role models in order to make sure that you have positive influences and people that have shared life experiences that you have. I've raised 3 young black sons in the middle of the neighborhood in the Buckeye Shaker community. So I'm very familiar with the challenges that young people are facing now. And one of the reasons that I never left the neighborhood, because my wife and myself made enough money that we could have moved into some of the other suburban communities, better schools, other quality of life, is because of what I just said to you. I owe. And I wanted young boys and girls, when I went to the grocery store, to the gas station, when I walked down the street, that they seen somebody who they can emulate and who they could be like and who that they felt that they could rise above their circumstances and didn't have to run or leave their neighborhood to do it, that they could do it right in the place that they are. So I want to say be encouraged. I want to say you already are showing a tremendous amount of leadership, and my door is always going to be open to people like yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jermaine. I just want to say I'm so sorry that you've had the experiences that you've had as a young person. I want to invite Erin to the podium. She has a question for Dr. Plummer.
Hello, my name is Erin, and I am a student at PEP Willow Creek. I feel really upset when I see people being left out or bullied. How can we make communities to be more inclusive and invite people in instead of pushing them out?
You did a wonderful job. I want to make sure that I got your question right. So you're asking about bullying and inclusion? First of all, I want to thank you for that question because it's such an important one, and having the courage to come up here and to ask that question. The response that I'm going to give you actually is going to be for you, but it's also going to be for myself and all of us. Because you put bullying and inclusion together, and I think that's a good pairing. Because inclusion is really about how do we create spaces for everyone to feel safe, you know, both psychologically and physically, you know. And we should all do that. And it's really our job, and I'm saying our job as adults, to create those spaces for you so that you don't have to have that experience. And, you know, that's what PEP is doing and what PEP has done and will continue to do. So I'm really excited and proud of you that you're a part of this. And when I think about bullies, and they come in adult forms too, you know, that there are people who don't feel good about themselves. And there are people who don't feel, you know, who operate, they're fearful, you know, and then they take it out on other people. And so if we can create those spaces where everybody, you know, then the bullying comes down too, you know. But it's not easy, and it's not easy. But I put the burden on us when I say that as adults, to create that space and to keep that going. You know, I heard Peter Rhea, who wrote a book called Better Humans, Better Performance, and he was part of our Becoming Better Human speaker series. And he said that parents should ask their children every evening 3 questions. You know, instead of asking them how was school today or whatever, that they should ask, you know, how were you brave today? How were you kind? And what did you learn from your mistakes? And I thought, wow, we need to ask that for ourselves. I need to ask that. Those are good questions for me every day, you know. And I think we need to do that. And I want to really applaud you, because first of all, you look beautiful. And then secondly, when you answer that question, you can answer that you were brave, because part of being brave also is being an upstander, you know. And so if we have people who are upstanders and strong enough, and we're creating the conditions within our schools, within our environments, within our communities, that especially people, you know, adults, young adults like yourself and children like yourself can feel safe, then we're on the right track. So thank you for leading us on the right track. Thank you.
Certainly echo the sentiment of gratitude and just appreciation for Erin's bravery. Not an easy thing to come in front of the room like this. That was such a, I think, critical question. I did want to pause and find out if Council President Griffin, Mr. Alcald, if you had any thoughts for Erin as well.
Ken, you first.
Well, I think it's hard to follow that, but you know, we're in the housing business at NRP, and so we see a lot of the things that can happen in downtime when kids are not in school and don't have structure. And so one of the things we do at all our communities is really try to implement after-school programs. I think it's been a critical element of our success, and one of the reasons why we feel our communities really thrive and you know, stand the test of time. So structure is important, and a lot of times it's hard for young people in today's world to find that structure and that community that I think you spoke about in your opening remarks. So community, housing, programs, keeping these kids active and focused, I think is really important, and it's a big part of what we do at NRP.
Well, I tell people that, you know, in bullying is real, and, you know, one of the things that I tell everybody is that a lot of times you see people that are dealing with adverse childhood experiences. I'm speaking to the choir here with people that know far more than I did. You know, Dr. Grimes just gave me a lesson in social emotional learning while we were at the table, which is why I've been studying while I was here. But, you know, sometimes you got to recognize that the bully, why are they doing it? And a lot of times people don't understand it's because they're acting out. And it took me a while to understand that, to actually be sympathetic towards somebody who's bullying. Because, you know, I'll be quite honest with you, I came up in the era where people told me the only way you handle a bully is you punch him in the nose. I wouldn't recommend that to everybody. What I would tell you is try to understand what is going on with that bully. Because the people who tried to bully me, because unfortunately, back in junior high school, ladies and gentlemen, they didn't have a limitation. So sometimes it was guys that were 16 years old with mustaches that were very brutal on 12 and 13-year-olds. But what I learned about each and every one of them as I grew up is that they were dealing with some personal demons themselves. So sometimes you have to step outside yourself and understand why somebody is acting out the way that they do. Once you understand that, it makes it easy to deal with them because, quite frankly, that same person who used to be your bully will become your protector because somebody actually took the time. And it could be a peer. It doesn't have to be an adult. It can be a peer that actually listens and actually is empathetic and sympathetic and really tries to listen. And you'll be surprised to Dr. Plummer's statements, which is how much you can get from just being courageous by showing somebody that you're not afraid to stand up to them, and that you can also be kind. Those two things aren't separated. You can actually do both of those two things together. Actually, you become a stronger person when you do those two things together.
I love that. Combining courage and empathy. What a powerful notion. Thank you for that. All right. Our next young person is Miriam, and I believe our colleague, Mr. Bunce, is going to share her question for Mr. Outcall today.
Good afternoon. My name is Rich. I'm with PEP Connections, and Miriam was unable to be here today and asked that I read this question in her absence. My name is Miriam, and I have been involved with PEP Connections for some time. For children to thrive, they need to live in safe and healthy housing. I've seen how hard it can be to achieve this, and that makes it really difficult to feel a sense of community. How can this truly be a community if people in it don't feel safe? What can be done so that all children live in a safe and healthy home?
Thank you, Marion. You know, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, it's a great question. Housing is such a foundational aspect of everyone's life that when you find yourself in an insecure housing environment, it's really difficult, particularly for a young person, to thrive. And so at NRP, what I want Marion to know is there are a lot of people in this room today who spend every day going to work and trying to create new affordable housing opportunities, not only in this city, but all throughout Ohio and throughout the country. And one of the challenges, and we're pretty darn good at it, to be quite honest with you, NRP is one of the leaders, but it's hard work. And the analogy I like to use is sort of the classic three-legged stool approach. You know, we recently had some success delivering on a project in Slavic Village, which I think is a neighborhood that's near and dear to Councilman Griffin's heart. And it took about 5 or 6 years, and at the end of the day, we were able to deliver 88 units of badly needed affordable housing in that neighborhood. But it didn't take just NRP, and it wasn't just a hard work. It required partnership. And NRP was only one leg of that stool. The second leg is a really strong local nonprofit, and in that case, we worked closely with University Settlement, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization that is headquartered in Slavic Village, run by Earl Pike, and a very strong sense of history for what that that community needed, what their residents needed, a strong connection to the culture. And we were able to work together to design a product that really worked. And the third leg of that stool is our city government. And we worked together on that project closely with City Council and Mayor Bibb. And so that was a wonderful story. So there are great things happening in the affordable housing world to solve some of the issues that Marianne brings up. However, it's just a drop in the bucket. Unfortunately, there's just not enough resources directed towards these kind of issues. But there's other things that we're working on nationally that I think we can bring to Ohio. One of the things that probably no one pays much attention to, but is really gaining ground in other states like Massachusetts and Florida, where the housing crisis has really reached a critical point, is land use reform. So essentially, throughout our history in this country, right, wrong, or indifferent, we've always favored single-family zoning designations, sort of the American dream. Well, there's not enough land out there that's zoned for multifamily. And multifamily is really, when you look at it, the most efficient way to deliver affordable housing. So what states like Massachusetts and Florida are doing, and maybe perhaps someday here in Ohio, is really incentivizing cities and counties and municipalities to increase the availability of multifamily land and provide incentives for developers that if they provide affordable housing in their deals, they will get sort of fast-tracked through the rezoning process, which can be a real hang-up in our business. But that's sort of about creating new housing. A big part of the challenges here in Northeast Ohio and throughout the state revolve around maintenance. We have a very old housing stock in this state. I learned recently that there are over 1 million units of housing in the state of Ohio that were built before 1939, which is really staggering. It blew me away. And so we really need to work hard to preserve the stock that we have, the housing stock that we have. And I think the City Council and the mayor have done a great job with issues like lead paint and teaching residents, both residents and landlords, what it means to maintain a housing unit, providing resources. And so that's a big part of not necessarily what NRP does, but what I think you're seeing in this community. And I think we're just starting to get focus on the maintenance side of affordable housing. And then the last thing I'd say is sort of preventing evictions. I think that's been a big problem. A family that is struggling oftentimes has missed payments or finds themselves in a situation where they can't live up to the lease that they signed. And so we need to continue to advocate for emergency rental funds for families in that situation. And I think one of the bright spots in our world these days is the Cleveland Legal Society is advocating on behalf of tenants and providing free advice for tenants and what rights they have when they find themselves in a situation that where a landlord's sort of not living up to their end of the bargain. So there are a lot of really positive things happening in the housing world. But Marianne, I really think that she makes a point that is really we should all take home today is that when you're in an unstable housing situation, it sort of creates a cascade of other problems in your life, whether that be holding on to a steady job or accessing transportation or food insecurity. And when you get caught up in that web, it's really hard to untangle yourself from it. And luckily, we have organizations like PEP and many other organizations in Cleveland that support families in that situation. But I guess my point is, if you start with housing, it makes all those other issues a whole lot easier to tackle. So I really appreciate the question and hope that Marianne is able to watch this on video.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam, and thank you, Mr. Bunce, for asking Miriam's question. I'm reminded of how important it is that we have an ecological approach, as we describe it at PEP, to our community's challenges, and that there are these intersecting needs that require really innovative approaches. And NRP and your leadership can really bring out just how pivotal that can be. I'm reminded, too, of the work on lead abatement and creating a housing stock that is more safe for young people as part of your leadership, Council President. So, so much to appreciate. Thank you. Last question, and that one's from Gio. And this question is for everyone.
My name is Gio. I am a student from PEP Phoenix. My classroom works like a team and helps us create a good community. How do you create that sense of community and connection in your work?
Thank you, Gio. I saw the breath, everybody took a breath. And Gio, you took a breath too before you asked that question. That was good. Good calming strategy. Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to go. You know, at NRP, we really pay a lot of attention to our culture. And it's at the forefront of every decision that we make. And one of the things we like to really encourage people at NRP to do is to seek out mentors and to seek out the opportunity to be a mentee. And it's really worked for us. And I think that, you know, mentorship is a you know, an idea that conjures up images of a coach or a parent or a teacher that is sort of a lifelong mentor. But there are a lot of different forms of mentorship, and we like to sort of expand the definition to include anything really. If you're reading a book and a character in that book really resonates with you and has something important to say, you know, that could be a mentor. You know, if you're religious and you go to church and you read something at church or hear something said at church that connects with you, that could be a mentor opportunity. And so the opportunity and responsibility goes both ways. You know, you might find yourself in an opportunity to be a mentor to someone else in your class. Even Taylor Swift is considered one of the greatest mentors the world's ever seen. The way she teaches lessons through her songs and communicates with her fans on social media. It's a whole different environment, and a lot of people point, you know, to that when they talk about how successful she's been. So I don't know if I'm a Swiftie, but I'm a Taylor Swift fan, and you know, I think that there's really a lot of truth in that, and so consider that next time you're in your classroom.
You're looking at me. When you talk about community and creating community, I think the first step begins with hello. And by that I mean acknowledging others and people acknowledge you. And I think that is a very first and simple step. I could give you a lot of other big things, but I think if we break it down to recognizing who everyone is and inviting them into the space, and all of us can do that, you know, by just acknowledging that the other person is there and who they are and accepting that, and then making space for everybody. It seems like a very simple thing, but we don't do that a lot because we often relate to each other without fear, or we take differences, and this person is in the community, this person isn't, you know, here are the, you know, this is all the rules, or this is all the criteria that you have to meet in order to be in the community. But actually, the community is connected to all of us and belonging, and so we aren't going to get everybody's talent. We aren't going to get everybody being able to be their full selves if we don't make that space, and we can make that space just by starting with hello.
I believe we have to care more. I once heard a statement that somebody said that nobody cares what you know unless they know that you care. I recently watched a podcast with Doris Kearns Goodwin, who is a presidential scholar, and she talked about how the best leaders are leaders who can actually empathize with people. We have become a callous community. We become a community that worries more about digitization, AI, and all of these other factors as opposed to having that human touch and being empathetic towards your fellow man or woman. So number one, I think that we have to care. Number two, I think we have to have collaborative leadership. one of the biggest pet peeves that I have in government and in society in general is that systems don't talk to each other. You have the school systems that don't talk to the social workers. The social workers don't talk to the church. The church doesn't talk to family and family services. So you have a lot of these families that have 8 to 10 different systems that they're trying to navigate, and these systems don't talk to each other because the system is not made to care for the entire family. The other thing that I will tell you is that we have to recognize that sometimes our community is sick. And to have community healing, we actually got to have some kind of, trauma response for some of the adults, just like we need to have it for some of the children. Sometimes adults just learn how to mask it better. But so many people are dealing with trauma, and that's why I said you have to open up and be empathetic and show people that you care. Like I said to the first gentleman, Jeremy, when he asked the question, that, hey, I've been through some of the same things you all have been through. And last but not least, I got to say this, policy. Policy is extremely important, and the reason that I got to say about policy and what we could do to make a community better with policy, when I first came to council, I had a methodology that I said in the theme. I said we want to be first, we want to be best, and we want to be different. The reason I said that is because I'm very competitive. I always want to win. I will always tell you again that, it's important for council to be the best. I'm tired of Cleveland being we're last in this or first in all of the wrong indicators and not even listed in all the best indicators. So want to be the best and want to be different. And I want to point out my colleague, Councilwoman House, because recently she sold me on something and I really think it shows about that caring and how policy is connected to life experiences and caring. She has a 3D printing legislation because she wants Cleveland to be producers. She did universal basic employment because we want to make sure that we can help some of these women, which in our city is approximately 68% heads of households, female heads of households, that we could try to find a way to have a guaranteed jobs outcome for them. Everybody doesn't like that because some people are more conservative in their approach to government, but we got to be different. We got to be able to stop doing the same thing over and over again. And we got to take new ideas and new things with people. And I will say this to the housing situation. I moved 6 times by the time I was in the 8th grade. What I've done with my life is I try to use my own life experiences to be, as a book I once read, strong in the broke places. We got to be able to heal, as I talk about communities of healing, and we're in communities of healing, but then also use that as a success story where we could tell the story of how we are here today. And I think once people tell their stories, because Cleveland is a compilation of stories and people can complement each other, then we will have a stronger community, better collaboration, better policies, and better systems that will talk to each other.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Gio. Each of you kind of dropped the mic, and so what I want to say is just thank you for your responses to our young people. Each of you, Jermaine, Gio, Miriam, and one more, Aaron, you had some thoughtful questions, some powerful questions. I think many of us will be reflecting on those questions as we leave here today. And I think that's what's necessary. And it's what each of you demonstrate in your leadership and in your work. You bring the personal and the professional together in service to making the world better. And I want to thank you for that leadership, that strength of character that I mentioned, the courage and wisdom, and generosity, too, that you bring. Thank you so much.
But Habiba, I must have to say, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, yes.
And for modeling everything that
Thank you for that, Debbie. I'm deeply humble, honored. I send that up to the ancestors and the higher power that make it possible for me to sit here, so thank you. I have one more gift before we depart the stage. Dr. Plummer, Mr. Outcalt, I'm being very formal because, I have a presentation here to make. But Dr. Plummer, Mr. Outcalt, you have those plaques. But Council President Griffin, we have something for you as well in honor of your presence with us today and your leadership in our community. I have a plaque that reads, "Thank you for championing Positive Education Program's mission of supporting young people to overcome and thrive, and for bringing your commitment to strengthening communities to Cleveland and beyond. Your leadership bolsters PEP's work of promoting the well-being of children and families."
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.